With that cheesy smile I had learned to fear, Dolores added, "I made this special recipe just for you, dear." The gorgeous baked ziti that Eric was already savoring didn't resemble the pasta dish that she set in front of me. Mine smelled of something that made my stomach turn, and it had a strange, grayish tinge. I'm 39 years old, and my name is Lauren McCauley. I had put up with Eric's mother's persistent undermining for the previous 6 years of our marriage. My desire was straightforward: to be welcomed into the family. Dolores Harrison, who had made it plain from the beginning that no one would ever be suitable for her beloved son, was what stood in my way. The injustice I faced was her relentless campaign to drive me away, disguised as maternal concern. As I stared down at the suspicious-looking pasta, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The smell was wrong, metallic, bitter, nothing like the herbs Dolores claimed to use. Eric hadn't even looked up from his plate, completely absorbed in his normal-looking dinner. The fact that only I had received this special version made alarm bells ring in my head. "What kind of herbs did you use?" I asked, keeping my voice light while discreetly reaching for my phone in my purse. "Oh, just old family secrets," Dolores replied, her eyes glittering with something that definitely wasn't grandmotherly affection. "I thought you might appreciate something unique." I pressed record on my phone's voice memo app, then slipped it back into my purse, positioning the opening toward Dolores. Something about this entire situation felt orchestrated, deliberate. The way she watched me, waiting for me to take a bite, the way Eric seemed completely oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. "So, you made this specifically for me?" I pressed, taking a small piece on my fork but not bringing it to my mouth. "Of course, Lauren. After all these years, I finally decided to share something special with you, something just between us girls." Her smile stretched wider, and I noticed her hands were trembling slightly, not with age, with anticipation. That was when I knew for certain that whatever was in this pasta was not meant to nourish me. The metallic smell grew stronger as I moved the fork closer to my face, and I saw tiny green specks that definitely were not basil or oregano. They looked more like the moss that grew in damp, forgotten corners, or worse. I set down my fork and smiled back at her. "How thoughtful. Tell me more about this family recipe. I would love to know exactly what makes it so special." The tension in Dolores's dining room had been building for years. I remembered the first time Eric brought me home to meet his parents in Richmond, Virginia. Dolores had taken one look at me, a small-town teacher from North Carolina, and her face had shuddered like storm clouds rolling in. "So, you teach elementary school?" she had said, making it sound like I cleaned sewers for a living. How quaint. My background was simple but honest. I grew up in a family where hard work mattered more than pedigree. My father was a mechanic, my mother a nurse. We lived paycheck to paycheck, but we lived with integrity. Dolores, with her country club memberships and charity board positions, saw me as beneath her son. The past 6 years had been a careful dance around her disapproval. She would make cutting remarks about my clothing, my cooking, my family's modest income. "Eric is used to finer things," she would say when I brought a homemade dessert to dinner. "Perhaps you should leave the entertaining to those with more experience." But Eric always defended her. "She doesn't mean anything by it," he would say afterward. "That's just how she talks." I began to suspect that he genuinely could not see his mother's cruelty, or perhaps he chose not to see it. The warning signs had been escalating lately. Last month, Dolores had accidentally served me a drink that made me violently ill while everyone else stayed perfectly healthy. The month before, she had offered me homemade cookies that tasted strongly of soap. Each time, she played innocent. Oh my, perhaps the milk was turning, or I must have confused the vanilla with the dish soap. Silly me. Now, as I sat staring at this suspicious pasta dish, I realized Dolores had finally crossed a line she could not uncross. The green specks scattered throughout looked like nothing from any herb garden. They had an artificial quality, almost crystalline. When I leaned closer, pretending to inhale the aroma, the metallic smell was overwhelming. This looks so different from Eric's dish, I observed, gesturing toward my husband's normal-looking baked ziti. What makes mine special? Oh, Eric has such a sensitive stomach, Dolores said quickly. I thought you might enjoy something with more robust flavors. You always seem so adventurous. The recording was still running in my purse. I needed her to be more specific, more incriminating. I picked up my fork again and pretended to examine the pasta closely. These green pieces, are they a special herb? I have never seen anything quite like them. Dolores's eyes lit up with unmistakable malice. Let's just say they will give you an experience you will never forget. That was the moment I knew with absolute certainty that Dolores was trying to poison me. The way she said those words, an experience you will never forget, combined with that predatory gleam in her eyes, sent ice through my veins. This was not an accident or a misunderstanding. This was attempted murder. I felt the world shift around me as the full reality hit. My mother-in-law, the woman who had baked Eric birthday cakes and kissed his scraped knees, was sitting across from me, hoping to watch me suffer. The realization was so shocking that for a moment I could not speak. What kind of experience? I managed, still recording. Oh, you will just have to trust me, she said, leaning forward expectantly. I put so much thought into this recipe, so much research. Eric finally looked up from his plate. What are you two talking about? Nothing, sweetheart, Dolores said smoothly. Just girl talk. Lauren was asking about my cooking techniques. I stared at my husband, really looked at him. His plate was clean, normal baked ziti with regular cheese and sauce. No green specks, no metallic smell, no special recipe that his mother had spent time researching. The contrast between our meals was stark and deliberate. I need to use the restroom, I said, standing carefully. My legs felt unsteady, but I managed to walk normally to Dolores's powder room. Once inside, with the door locked, I immediately called 911. 911, what is your emergency? I believe someone is trying to poison me, I whispered. I am at my mother-in-law's house, and she served me food that smells wrong and has strange substances in it. She made comments suggesting it will give me an experience I will never forget. Are you in immediate danger, ma'am? I have not eaten any of it yet, but she is expecting me to. I have a recording of her confirming she made this dish specifically for me with special ingredients. What is your location? I gave them the address and my name. The dispatcher told me officers were on their way and advised me to stay on the line. I quickly texted my friend Danielle, who worked for the Richmond Police Department. Danielle, emergency at Eric's mother's house. Think she's trying to poison me. Police coming. Can you check if anyone is available who knows me? Then I flushed the toilet for effect and returned to the dining room. Dolores was practically vibrating with anticipation. Feeling better, dear? Much better, thank you. I sat back down and picked up my fork again. Before I try this wonderful creation, could you tell me exactly what those green things are? I want to savor every ingredient. Dolores's smile turned predatory. They are special herbs I found in the woods behind the house. Quite rare. Most people cannot handle them, but I thought you might be tougher than most. My blood ran cold. Wild mushrooms or plants could be deadly. Special herbs from the woods, I repeated slowly, making sure my phone caught every word. And you found these yourself? Oh, yes, Dolores said proudly. I spent weeks researching which ones would be perfect for you. I even tested them on some of the stray cats that come around the yard. My heart stopped. She had just confessed to testing potentially lethal substances on animals. The casual way she mentioned it, as if discussing the weather, made my skin crawl. This woman was not just vindictive, she was genuinely dangerous. Eric was obliviously scrolling through his phone, completely missing the horror unfolding at his own dinner table. I wondered how many other accidents Dolores had orchestrated over the years, how many people had gotten mysteriously sick after eating her cooking. The cats, I said carefully. What happened to them? Dolores waved her hand dismissively. Oh, they wandered off afterward, probably to sleep it off somewhere quiet. Sleep it off, or die slowly and painfully where no one would find them. I felt nausea rising in my throat that had nothing to do with the contaminated food in front of me. Just then, I heard car doors slamming outside. Dolores frowned and moved toward the window. "Who could that be?" she muttered. "Maybe package delivery," I suggested innocently. The doorbell rang, followed by firm knocking. "Richmond Police Department." Dolores went white. She spun around to stare at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized what had happened. The fake sweetness drained from her face, replaced by raw fury. "You called the police," she hissed. "I certainly did," I said, standing up, "after you confessed to putting unknown substances from the woods into food specifically prepared for me and admitted to testing them on animals first." Eric finally looked up from his phone. "What is going on?" "Your mother just tried to poison me," I said bluntly. "That is ridiculous," he started, but then he looked at our 2 plates, his normal meal versus my suspicious concoction, and his expression began to change. The knocking grew more insistent. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." Dolores stood frozen, her hands shaking. I walked to the front door and opened it to find 2 uniformed officers and Danielle, who was off duty but had come anyway. "Lauren," Danielle said, her face grim, "are you hurt?" "Not yet. I didn't eat any of it." I gestured toward the dining room. "The evidence is still on the table, and I have a recording of her confession." Officer Martinez, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, stepped inside. "Ma'am, I am going to need you to step away from the kitchen and dining area while we secure the scene." Dolores finally found her voice. "This is outrageous." "Lauren is lying. It is just herbs." "Then you wouldn't mind if we test the food?" Officer Martinez asked. "Of course not. Test away. It is perfectly safe." But her bravado cracked when I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Her own voice filled the room. "They are special herbs I found in the woods behind the house. I spent weeks researching which ones would be perfect for you. I even tested them on some of the stray cats." Eric's face went ashen. He looked from the recording to his mother to the 2 plates of food, and I watched years of willful blindness finally shatter. "Mom," he whispered, "what did you do?" Dolores's composure completely crumbled as her own words echoed through the living room. She hadn't expected to be recorded, hadn't planned for the possibility that her victim might be smart enough to gather evidence. The mask of the loving mother-in-law slipped away entirely, revealing something vicious underneath. "She made me do it," Dolores shrieked, pointing at me. "She stole my son. She turned him against his own family." Officer Martinez remained calm as he took notes. "Ma'am, I need you to remain quiet while we document the scene. Anything you say can be used against you." "I don't care." Dolores was spiraling now, all pretense abandoned. 6 years I have watched her poison Eric's mind against me. 6 years of watching him choose her over his own mother. I gave birth to him. I raised him, and he throws it all away for some nobody teacher. Eric looked like he had been struck. He kept staring at the 2 plates, at the obvious difference between them, as if seeing his mother clearly for the first time. "Mom, you actually tried to." He couldn't finish the sentence. Danielle was carefully photographing both plates while Officer Martinez's partner, Officer Chin, spoke quietly into his radio. I heard him request a hazmat team and someone from the medical examiner's office to identify the unknown substances. "Lauren," Danielle said softly, "can you walk me through exactly what happened?" I recounted the evening step by step, from Dolores's strange insistence on the special recipe to her comments about testing the herbs on cats. With each detail, Eric grew paler. "The cats," he said suddenly. "Mom, what happened to the stray cats? There used to be 3 or 4 that came around your garden. I haven't seen any of them in weeks." Dolores's face flushed red. "How am I supposed to know where cats go? They are strays." But her evasion only made Eric more suspicious. "You used to put food out for them. You said they reminded you of Whiskers when I was little. And now they're all gone, right around the time you started acting stranger than usual toward Lauren." "I was protecting you," Dolores exploded. That woman is beneath you. She comes from nothing. Her father fixes cars, her mother empties bedpans. You could have had anyone, any debutante, any doctor's daughter, and you chose her. The pure venom in her voice was shocking. I had known she disliked me, but this level of hatred was breathtaking. She wasn't just angry about losing influence over Eric. She genuinely despised everything about me and my background. Officer Martinez finished taking photos of the contaminated pasta and carefully sealed it in an evidence bag. Ma'am, you are under arrest for attempted poisoning and animal cruelty. You have the right to remain silent. No, Dolores screamed, trying to back away from him. You cannot arrest me. I am a pillar of this community. I volunteer at the hospital. I organize charity drives. Check my references. But Eric wasn't coming to her defense. He sat slumped in his chair, staring at his hands. When she looked to him desperately, he just shook his head. Mom, you tried to poison my wife. You killed innocent animals. I can't. I don't even know who you are anymore. Dolores's expression shifted to something calculating and cold. Fine. If I am going down, at least I will have the satisfaction of knowing I tried to save you from a lifetime of mediocrity. As Officer Martinez cuffed her, she looked directly at me with pure hatred. You will never be good enough for him. Never. The hazmat team arrived 20 minutes later, along with a specialist from the medical examiner's office who could identify unknown botanical substances. They set up equipment in Dolores's kitchen while Eric and I sat in the living room, watching our marriage implode in real time. I should have seen it, Eric kept saying. The cat's disappearing, you getting sick after eating here, the way she always made you different food. God, Lauren, what kind of person does that make me? I studied my husband's face, really looked at him. The shock was genuine, the horror was real, but so was 6 years of choosing to believe his mother's explanations instead of trusting his wife's concerns. I wasn't sure if our marriage could survive this revelation, not because of what Dolores had done, but because of what Eric had failed to see. Danielle came back from the kitchen, where she had been observing the evidence collection. Lauren, they found several different plant materials in your pasta. Some appear to be pokeweed berries, which can cause severe gastrointestinal distress, convulsions, and potentially death. Others, they're still identifying. Pokeweed, Eric repeated numbly. We learned about that in Boy Scouts. It's highly toxic. Officer Chen's radio crackled, and I heard dispatch mention finding 3 deceased cats buried in Dolores's back garden. My stomach turned. She hadn't just tested the poison. She had perfected it. How long has this been going on? I asked Eric. The weird food, the strange comments, the way she always seemed to have accidents around me. Eric rubbed his face with both hands. Looking back, maybe 2 years. Maybe longer. I kept telling myself she was just getting older, more forgetful. I wanted to believe she was trying to be nice to you. She was trying to kill me, Eric. Slowly, gradually, making it look like accidents or illness. If I had eaten that pasta tonight, we sat in silence as the full implication sank in. This wasn't a moment of rage or passion. This was premeditated attempted murder, planned and executed over months or even years. The specialist emerged from the kitchen, carrying several sealed containers. Detective Walsh, she called to Danielle, you need to see this. We followed her into the kitchen, where she had laid out samples of various plants on sterile sheets. This is definitely pokeweed, as I mentioned, but there's also foxglove, which affects the heart, and what appears to be destroying angel mushrooms, which cause liver failure. This wasn't someone randomly picking plants. This was someone who researched exactly how to cause maximum damage. Eric made a choking sound. She researched it. She planned this. There's more, the specialist continued. I found a notebook in the pantry with detailed notes about dosages, effects, and timing. Your mother-in-law has been documenting her experiments. They brought out a composition notebook filled with Dolores's careful handwriting, Page after page of observations about which plants caused which symptoms, how much was needed to cause illness versus death, and, most chilling of all, specific notes about me. Lauren ate approximately 1/3 of the cookies before stopping. Danielle read aloud. Next time, use less foxglove and more pokeweed. The bitter taste is making her suspicious. Eric doubled over like someone had punched him in the stomach. His mother had been trying to murder me for months, documenting her attempts like a scientist conducting research. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Lauren, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have seen what she was doing. But sorry wouldn't undo years of choosing his mother's word over mine. Sorry wouldn't bring back the cats, and sorry wouldn't erase the fact that I had been living with a woman who wanted me dead." The trial was a media sensation. Debutante mother tries to poison daughter-in-law made headlines across Virginia and beyond. The prosecution had overwhelming evidence: the contaminated food, the notebook full of poisoning research, the deceased cats, and my recording of her confession. Dolores's defense attorney tried to argue temporary insanity brought on by empty nest syndrome and medication interactions. But the detailed notebook, spanning 18 months, destroyed any claim of a spontaneous mental break. This was calculated, methodical attempted murder. I testified for 3 hours, walking the jury through every suspicious meal, every unexplained illness, every time Dolores had offered me something special while everyone else ate normal food. Eric testified too, his voice breaking as he described finding his mother's research notes. "She wrote about my wife like she was a laboratory animal," he said on the stand. "She documented dosages and reactions. She was trying to find the perfect amount to kill Lauren without it looking suspicious." The most damning evidence came from the veterinarian who examined the deceased cats. They all had died from the same combination of toxins found in my pasta. Dolores had been perfecting her poison recipe on innocent animals before using it on me. When the verdict came back, guilty on all counts, including attempted first-degree murder and 3 counts of animal cruelty, Dolores showed no remorse. As the bailiff led her away, she turned to glare at me one final time. "You destroyed my family," she hissed. "No," I replied calmly, "you destroyed it yourself the moment you decided I deserved to die for marrying your daughter." The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. At 68 years old, it was effectively a life sentence for me. Justice had been served, but the damage to my marriage was irreparable. Eric and I divorced 6 months after the trial. Despite his genuine remorse and horror at what his mother had done, I couldn't forgive 6 years of dismissing my concerns as paranoia every time he had told me I was imagining things, every time he had made excuses for her behavior. His mother's behavior every time he had chosen her word over mine. It all added up to a fundamental lack of trust that I couldn't rebuild trust. "I will never stop being sorry," he told me as we signed the divorce papers, "and I will never stop being grateful that you survived her." I moved back to North Carolina, to a small town outside Charlotte where no one knew about the case. I wanted anonymity, peace, and distance from myself. The circus settlement from my divorce life gave me enough money to take time off from teaching and focus on healing. But healing was complicated. I had nightmares about contaminated food starting. I couldn't eat at restaurants without wondering if someone in the kitchen wished me harm for. I found to comfort trust in caring myself for again. I started volunteering at an animal shelter, finding comfort in caring for creatures who were abandoned or abused, and I took self-defense classes, and I learned to garden again, growing my own herbs and vegetables in raised beds where I could control every ingredient for. Most importantly, I learned to trust my instincts again, the little voice that had told me something was wrong with that pasta, the same voice I had learned to doubt during 6 years of being told I was paranoid for. I learned to listen to it again. Dolores had tried to destroy me, but instead, she had freed me from a marriage built on years willful of blindness, and a family that saw me as expendable. I I realized looking that back surviving on her poison had taught me the most terrifying valuable night lesson of all. My life was worth fighting for, and I would never again let anyone convince me otherwise anything else.